Howdy, howdy, and welcome back. It's another Workshop Wednesday, and this week's edition is a Getting Started edition. So it's for those of you who are literally just getting started. And in this case, we are talking about getting started when it comes to moving from Universal to GA4. Before we get too far into this, welcome. If this is your first Workshop Wednesday, my name is Chris Mercer. Everybody calls me Mercer. You should as well. I am the co-founder over at measure.tips, and whether you found us through the podcast and talks that we give, maybe you found some of our courses. We do share some of our content with other platforms like CX Institute or Social Media Examiner, Digital Marketer, and Measure Summit. Maybe you're already a member over at measure.tips as part of either our free Measurement Toolbox membership or the Measurement Marketing Academy. However you found us, we are happy that you're here. It's our job to help you learn how to use all these tools, including, of course, now Google Analytics 4. It's the new kid on the block, and it's the one that we really need to start paying attention to. Now, we have the Measure Marketing Academy. I mentioned that earlier. That is our flagship just-in-time learning platform. Just about every course you could ever want when it comes to digital measurement is back there. So the basics of Google Analytics 4, we've got a course for that. Beyond basics when it comes to Google Analytics, we've got a course for that. What about Tag Manager? Glad you asked. We have courses on the basics of Tag Manager, beyond basics when it comes to Tag Manager. Also setting up retargeting when it comes to Tag Manager. There are courses on Data Studio, both basics and beyond basics. There are courses on strategy. There are lots of courses on strategy. And that's just the courses. There's a ton that's available in the Measurement Marketing Academy, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about at the end of this content as to where you can find out more information about that. When it comes to this workshop, though, it's really about one thing. We use a slide every time, but that's because it is so important to avoid frustrating yourself and getting just overwhelmed with all the new changes that are coming out with a platform like Google Analytics 4. You just focus on one new concept, one new idea. Now, you're going to see a lot of different aspects of GA4 demonstrated in this workshop. So it doesn't mean, like, some of these you might not have played with yet. Some of these you may not even know were a thing yet. And I know it's a getting started workshop, but part of this is like actually showing you what essentially will be basic skills when it comes to GA4. So even if you don't have them yet, you can use this workshop to sort of see how they're being used and how to think through things on your own particular setup. All right, let's go ahead and get officially started. Getting started, moving from Universal Analytics to GA4. Now, we're going to go ahead and dive right in, of course, as we always do, with the framework. Remember, you plan, you build, you launch. We're all marketing in the blind, and we're trying to figure out how do we use a system that just sort of produces results, right? That's what the measurement framework is all about. So first step was we plan. We ask questions, we make sure we're gathering the information needed to get answers to those questions, and then we already know what actions we're going to take based upon the answers that we get. Then the build. Now, of course, when it comes to GA4, results are a huge thing. Not just for like the thing you might be thinking about like e-commerce, but what about goals? Because Universal Analytics, like, you have goals. You don't have those in GA4. So you're actually going to see how to tackle that today. We're going to focus more on the goal side of things. Then there's obviously traffic. Now, if you're already using UTMs, which you should be using with Google Analytics, they sort of naturally come over. So no harm, no foul there. Then there's the story, making sure that you do what we call the setup to make sure that you have a story that's starting to appear between which traffic sources are causing which results. And that's using Google Analytics 4. Now, again, in this particular workshop, we clearly don't have time to show you everything about how to use GA4, but hopefully this migration and sort of thinking about how do you move, right? That's what people are saying. They're calling it migration. So a migration from Universal to GA4, what are the steps and how do you think about it? Now, once you have that down, then it's listening. This is where you listen to the conversation that's happening between the website and the users to make sure it's a conversation we want the website to be having with our users. Now, how do we do that? We do that with platforms like Data Studio. And that's where the migration of data really happens, connecting it into GA4 as opposed to Universal Analytics. Then we take our same forecast, you should always forecast, and have an understanding of what things should be doing, and then you measure against that forecast, and that is where you know how to where specifically to optimize and where to focus your very limited resources so you can get the most bang for the buck and really move the needle. So that is the measurement marketing framework in a nutshell. And of course, it's our job to show you how to go through this, specifically the migration phase. We're going to focus kind of on the build aspect of it, but it does affect your reporting. And that we're going to bring Julie Brade in for. So Julie's been doing this for a very long time in internet years. She's an account manager for our dedicated management clients. She handles our entire measurement department over at measure.marketing.io and works with a team of people as well there. Manages the Ask an Instructor section over in the Academy. So those of you who are Academy are very used to talking back and forth with Julie and the other instructors to get help on your particular setups and talk strategy and everything else that goes on back there. Just an absolute rock star. And she's in the middle, very much in the middle of our own personal migration as we are moving from Universal Analytics to GA4 being our primary source. And so Julie stepped up and said, hey, let me handle this one. I'm doing a ton of this, and so I can share a ton of lessons. So without further ado, Julie Brade, take it away.
Thank you so much for that awesome introduction, Mercer. Let's go ahead and talk about what is migrating. To answer this question, we're going to talk about what migrating is not. Migrating, it is not disconnecting from Universal Analytics. It is not unplugging Universal Analytics. It is not stopping data from going into Universal Analytics. I don't know how many other different ways to say it, but please do not unplug, disconnect your Universal Analytics. It is not broken. Migrating is getting Google Analytics 4 set up a proper way so that you can collect data and report on it and all those other fun things, but it's not disconnecting Universal Analytics. I want to stop that right there because we've seen plenty of catastrophes where people did disconnect it and then it was just a big mess. So helping you avoid this mess, and so don't unplug your Universal Analytics. So let's dive in to see exactly what it is that we're going to do with Universal Analytics. So we have two different tabs that are going to come up for you. We have our Google Analytics 4 and we have our Universal Analytics. And so Universal is on the left and GA4 is on the right. So UA, GA4 is how we're going to talk about these. So when you are going through your plan, which we always start with a plan, and we do have different workshops and courses in the Measurement Marketing Academy to help you build your plan so you know exactly what it is you want to put into GA4. But most of us are going to ask questions about how many users saw this page or how many page views is this page getting. And so that all ties around a page or a page view. And this is how we're seeing that data inside Universal Analytics, and this is how we're seeing that data inside of GA4. And how do we get that information into GA4? Well, if you're using the G tag or not using Tag Manager, that's the way that you do it. And obviously for anything more customized that we're about to talk about, you will definitely want to get with your developer and they can help you with that. For those of you that are using Tag Manager, it is actually really easy to migrate. I'm telling you now, it used to be kind of a little bit intimidating and scary to me, being real with you, that I didn't want to do things like it's like kind of dragging my feet with it, but then kind of once I got the hang of it and realized like, oh, it's actually a lot easier. So it's not as hard as we're making it out to be in the media and stuff. So let's go ahead and jump in and see how is it that we're getting this information in and how it is so easy for you to migrate to GA4. So in Tag Manager, again, because that's the platform that we're using to send our data to either platform, to GA or GA4, UA or GA4, we're using just a simple page view tag from GTM, and then we're firing it on all pages. Then in GA4, we're using their type of page view tag, and then we're firing it on all pages. So the when that we're sending the data is not changing, and that makes it so much faster. This is a little bit of a customization, and so is this, but most of you probably won't have to do that. And most of our clients don't even have this. We do this because we teach a lot and we have to show all the different options. So just know that it is pretty quick to set up a GA4 page view. And then something else that you're probably wondering, it's actually a very common question that we get inside Ask an Instructor support constantly. And that is, how do I get my event data into GA4 the way that I want it? And so if we come into Google Analytics and we see our events and we're looking at this particular event that's a lead, in Tag Manager, this is the way it looks. It says category, action, and label. Then inside GA4, we have the same thing. We have a generate lead, and then we have our different type of options that we have going through here, the lead type and the last blog viewed here. So we're sending through the same information with the GA4 lead. It's an event. coming through in the information. Yes, we have a little bit extra coming through in GA4, but we're sending through the other parts and pieces that we were sending through with Universal Analytics. Now, you might have noticed the name has changed. Well, that is because Generate Lead is something called a recommended event for GA4. Now, recommended events, you can find a whole list of them at measure.tips/GA4 events, and that will show you all of those different events. But just basically means it's going to treat this particular type of event in a very particular way, which can be very useful and helpful for us, especially for those of us that are running ads and stuff like that. Now, so this is how we have our event data coming through into GA4 or Universal from Tag Manager. The next thing that we get a lot of questions about is how about that goal? So we have that same exact event is now becoming a goal. How do we do that inside GA4? Well, guess what? That is easy, the easiest thing. Honestly, it's actually kind of funny because I don't know how many times we've had to help troubleshoot goals or make videos on goals, workshops on goals, and like, why is my goal not working? All of these different things for goals inside Universal Analytics. Doing goals inside GA4, which they're actually not called goals anymore, they're called conversions. So that's just one little tidbit change. There are no goals in GA4, they're conversions. You know how hard it is to do a conversion? I'll show you how hard it is to do a conversion. Let's say we want to do a conversion for a file download. It's a toggle, and that is the easiest stinking thing. So I don't think we're going to have that many workshops and courses on how to troubleshoot a goal, because it's quite literally this. And the other cool thing is that we have this count of data immediately because it's already been collecting it, and we just see it as conversion. So again, another huge win for GA4 because it makes it so much easier. And this really honestly was one of those things, troubleshooting goals from Universal was one of those sore points that a lot of people had trouble with, was troubleshooting these. So Google Analytics 4 makes it really, really easy. So again, these event names come from what you're sending into, well, let's do this side, sending into GA4. So if you want something to be a goal, you just transition it over, you migrate it over, and then you just switch a toggle. That's all you got to do to make sure you have those goals. Now, the other thing that you might have, if you're familiar with the custom reports inside Universal Analytics, you might have some custom dimensions or custom definitions, which could also be custom metrics. So as you can see, we have actually maxed out our custom dimensions. There's only allowed to have 20 of them. And so here's another win for GA4 because you don't have that limit. So it kind of depends on what kind you have, but user, I believe you have 25, and event you have 50. And so it's making another win for GA4 that it makes it a lot easier to set these up. And so we're going to walk through that real quick on how easy it is for that. So we have, again, here, it's inside our Universal. The way we're getting this information into Universal Analytics is through our gas variable in this instance for the custom dimensions. Obviously, this is, we're using Tag Manager for this. And then coming over here, inside our GA4, we are sending this information of the last blog viewed for this instance, we are sending it through with an event. So that is a difference with Universal to GA4 is with your custom dimensions, you're going to send them through with your gas variable here, and then over on GA4, you can send them through with your events. Technically, you can send them through with your page view as well. So it's not just one spot, and it just makes it a whole lot easier to be able to answer those questions that you might have, and to be able to get that information in there. And so now you know how to migrate your page views, you know how to migrate your events, you know how to migrate your goals, and now you know how to migrate your custom dimensions. Now the final little piece that we want to show you to make sure you know how to migrate is your e-commerce. So obviously this is going to depend on your e-commerce platform and what you're using and all that fun stuff, but here is the basics for what it looks like. So you have your e-commerce overview here in Universal, and then over in GA4, they of course changed the fun name. It's called monetization and monetization overview is where we're going to go. And then same basic information that you're going to have here to see the different types and whatnot. And so to get that information into Google Analytics, either platform, UA or GA4, we are of course using Tag Manager, and then we are sending different parts and pieces based off of what each platform is looking for. So Universal has certain requirements, GA4 has certain requirements of what they're looking for. And it depends on what platform you're using. If you're using WooCommerce or Shopify or something like that, your steps of getting this into the to GA4 might be different. So don't copy and paste exactly what we're doing, because it all depends on your platform. If you have questions, use Ask an Instructor. We can guide you through that. It's just kind of showing that, hey, it looks like this on one side, it looks like this on the other side, very similar information that's going through. And then we have the same win. So remember, we talked about it, with Universal to GA4 with Tag Manager. It's really easy to basically, use this part. The triggering is already done for you. All you have to do is figure out what it is that you're trying to send. And so we're going to walk back through real quick just to show you side by side. Here are your page view, same trigger that we're using there. Your leads or your events that you're trying to send through, same trigger. So half of the work is already done for you. Honestly, if you don't need any of this other stuff right here, you could literally create a generate lead event and use the exact same triggers you have for your current leads in Universal. You can get this done in a matter of minutes. And that's how fast and easy it is to migrate. Now going over to your custom dimensions. We've talked about this, how this is a little bit more complicated over here to get that information in. However, those different parts and pieces, you're already using them. And so we have that here. It's just using the same part that we already have, and we're just pushing it through with an event that we're already using. So just, again, super easy. Going back to those goals. Again, goals were really more complicated in analytics, and one of those things we always had to troubleshoot inside of GA4. It's a toggle. It is the easiest stinking thing ever, and super happy for it, and it makes life a whole lot easier. And then finally, with e-commerce, the platform, you do have to kind of follow the rules of what it's looking for. You see, have something called items now, and we do have, again, courses and workshops to kind of guide you through step by step on how to do this, just an overview. And so that is how easy it is to migrate from Universal to GA4. You now know how to do your page views, your events and goals, custom definitions or dimensions, as well as e-commerce. So I'm going to go ahead and send it back to you, Mercer.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Julie. Again, Julie Brade, instructor over at Ask an Instructor. So if anybody has any questions, if you're an Academy member already, you know where to find Julie and the rest of the team. You can actually help. They will give you kind of a migration plan. If you're like, well, here's what I currently have with Universal. What would you do first? What would you do second? They can help with that if you're an Academy member. So please take advantage of that. And when you think about the one thing, I know for me, the one thing was fitting GA4 and trying to understand it's different. It's not just a simple upgrade to Universal. And the biggest one thing for me was not disconnecting Universal, which is such a mistake. I see that still to this day. People are turning off Universal and then starting up GA4. Do not do that, as Julie mentioned. It's just yes and. You keep Universal in the background. It's just that you're not going to be using it as much as your primary production platform when it comes to answering questions. So like in our case, we use Data Studio, and so it's not going to be our data source for Data Studio anymore. GA4 is, and we're migrating so that GA4 is that, as Julie showed. So with that, we've got next week's workshop. It's how to remove internal traffic with GA4. It's a little bit beyond basics. So you should have definitely some experience with GA4. We're going to talk about actually how to remove internal traffic with GA4, and a gentle assist from Data Studio will be on that one as well. If you want that, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, we recommend instead the Measurement Marketing Toolbox. Everything's completely free back there. All the tools that we have for our members, they're yours, free for the taking, including the most recent Workshop Wednesday. All you need to do is go to measure.tips/WW. It will immediately take you to the login or to the page where you can sign up. Name and email is all it requires. It'll send you login information. The only thing we ask is that it's something you use. So if you're not using it, we will ask you to sort of give up that space, that account for somebody else to use, because we only want to have a certain amount of those open. Since there is so much value back there, we just want to make sure you're using it. So, and again, if you are, keep it for as long as you want it. But if you're not, free up space. But again, measure.tips/WW. The other option, as I mentioned earlier, is the Measurement Marketing Academy. To find out more about what particular options are currently available for you, just go to measure.tips/getacademy. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. This has been Getting Started, moving from Universal Analytics to GA4. Thanks again for watching this workshop, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.